This is Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. On the show, you'll hear from innovators in the food space. We'll have disruptive conversations with people from around the globe who are taking the lead on topics like food sustainability, ending world hunger, food security, and so much more. I'm your host, Paul Newnham. In this episode, we're talking to Yazen Al Kodmani. Yazen is the General Manager at Emirates Bio Farm, the UAE's largest organic farm. In today's conversation, we'll explore the unique challenges and opportunities of desert farming and how innovative agricultural practices are transforming the UAE's food landscape. You'll hear Yazen explain how he's pioneering sustainable farming practices in one of the world's most challenging environments. He'll share insights on the future of organic agriculture in the region and offer valuable advice to the next generation of agricultural entrepreneurs. Let's get into it. Yazen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So take us back to the beginning. Where did your agriculture journey begin?
My father came to the UAE very early in the mid-70s as an agriculture engineer. He heard about a man greening the desert, and this is His Highness the late Sheikh Zayed Al Nahyan, the founding father of the UAE. And he had a mission of establishing agriculture to build his nation, his newly found nation. So my father has been in the agriculture industry ever since. And he saw the transformation, and he was involved in, and still is, in fertilizer business and building greenhouses. And down the line, we had the opportunity to start farming on our own land. I got into that aspect and grew passionate about it and became known for managing the UAE's largest organic farm.
Amazing. So you kind of grew into it almost.
Yeah, somehow I was in the business of agriculture on the outside. And then when I started being involved in the farm itself, it changed from a business mindset to more of a passion and learning more about the challenges from a producer's perspective. And that really changed my mindset and drove me to try and, do things differently.
So your farm is called Emirates Bio Farm. And for anyone who doesn't know what is Emirates Bio Farm?
Emirates Bio Farm is the UAE's largest organic farm and agritourism project. We are based between Dubai and Al Ain in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. We are farming in pure desert. Basically, what's around us is large sand dunes, and we are using our drip irrigation, we are using agroforestry, we're using a collection of shade houses, greenhouses, and open fields to farm over 45 types of fruits and vegetables, as well as organic eggs in a semicircular system. And we're trying to build soil. We're trying to educate the community. Part of that became as a bit of visits, farm visits, that grew into its own standalone agritourism project with events, with a restaurant, with a shop, where people are able to come and see what we're doing. And also it builds into the circularity of the farm. People can now consume some of the product we can't sell because of odd shape and so on, and basically shop as well direct from the farm. And that adds to the revenue sources and the sustainable model.
And you're also involved with the World Economic Forum's Food Innovation Hub. How has that influenced your vision for agriculture in the region?
Yeah, so being on the supplier side to farmers, building greenhouses, seeing a lot of the high-tech projects, being part of them as well from the main business of the family, and operating myself and distributing to retailers, I gained this unique view of the agriculture industry in our region, from high-tech, low-tech, regenerative, and understanding the challenges a bit more and the policy. So based on that, we established a consultancy, and I supported the World Economic Forum and still do, leading on a project called Food Innovation Hub UAE. And this is in partnership with the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Global Initiatives. So this project, it kind of took me back to basically zoomed out a bit into how do we drive fit for purpose innovation. So innovation is out there, but how do we ensure that the problems are well identified and we are finding solutions for them? Because sometimes you're getting a tech that was developed in a different market, in a different cost structure, different challenges. And if you copy and paste it, it might not be suitable to the farmer in that location. So we're trying to make sure that we define the questions well, we create a pipeline of innovators based on these well-defined challenges, and then we support them through something called an access program with some of our partners to establish pilots and trials to ensure that it does work, it solves our challenges. And then our third pillar is trying to be success partners for them, so to support them grow once they establish themselves in the UAE.
When we're talking about organic farming and you were talking about doing this in the desert, what does it look like to farm in a desert environment in the UAE?
The desert sand is actually a good, well-draining, easy to work with base. And then you're adding compost and animal manures to kind of add that organic matter. So I would say we're not regenerating because it's not something that was, in the short timelines, it's not something that you can leave and it'll regenerate. It's something that we have to put in effort to create the soil and develop the work within the main ethos of organic farming and trying to build soil. So it's a bit different. It'll be challenging. Sometimes I say, if I do not till, if I do not add, there's nothing down there for the bacteria and the beneficial microorganisms to develop on their own. So in the initial phases, we have to till, we have to add. And I think that is the case, is that ultimately the point is the outcome. So I need synthetic chemical-free produce. I need to be environmental friendly. I need to build soil. The methods have to be different based on what you're starting with, where you are. And sometimes there's a lot of difficult trade-offs. So you can, for example, cool a greenhouse, but you're wasting water in an energy efficient way. You can use a high energy system and save water, but you're wasting energy. And it's the same outside. If I keep my ground cover throughout the summer, then I'm going to use precious water to do that, to do my covering. But if I don't, then I'll lose organic matter. So there's a lot of trade-offs and testing to try and figure out how to do it financially sustainable and in a way that works given our challenges.
Yeah, there's some pretty unique challenges. How does water play into that in terms of finding water and even in the desert?
Yeah, I think ultimately without water, even the most rich soil will just become dry and crack and break apart. So the essence and the essential of building soil and having this microbiome and your organic matter remain is having water and moisture. So the UAE is obviously an arid climate zone. It's been relying on groundwater from ancient aquifers that are depleting at a faster rate than our consumption. So the government has been working on so many initiatives to try and reverse that. Many of them, so now the landscaping is utilizing treated sewage effluent. And there is a trial now to large areas of Abu Dhabi where they are using treated sewage effluent for farming. But of course, it's been filtered and it's in the pilot phases. You also have a lot of programs where desalinated water is replenishing aquifers. You have dams that are built to kind of capture water back into the aquifers. But ultimately, we're trying to save water. So drip irrigation is the standard. We're trying to avoid animal feed and large-scale conventional farming like grains and rice and things that could be very water intensive. And it's more high-value vegetable crops on drip irrigation. But moving forward, we talk about, okay, can we try quinoa and work with partners in the UAE like ICBA and others who are trying to promote these alternative grains that use less water, can use saline water. There's people working on, so ICBA with the salinity. And you have projects that are, of course, hydroponics is being supported by the government. You have a lot of large lettuce, berries projects that are working on the circularity system for water. But yeah, it's a multi-pronged approach for our aspect, since most of the crops that we grow have to be grown in soil. You don't have an alternative in terms of hydroponics, like potatoes and carrots and open field stuff, zucchinis and beetroots and so on. So we feel that regenerative organic is the way to go for us and support the water conservation because, as you know, more organic matter in the soil, less water to be used.
And in terms of other sustainable farming practices, what would you say are some of the other practices that you've really focused on or even maybe been challenged by to implement in the environment that you're in?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that we've learned from any transformative business, even in solar power, if the financial case doesn't make sense, you're not going to move beyond being a niche. So if we want organic regenerative to be mainstream, we really got to focus on the costs, on the efficiency. And I think now that it's even regenerative, that the amount of times it's in high level conversations compared to just 5 years ago is a huge difference. And you have, the beans is how movement. So the ideas of utilizing beans, utilizing regenerative agriculture are way more mainstream than before now. But I'm hoping that leads into more R&D, more scientific, direct practices that help us reach the efficiency levels where we are no longer targeted as you cannot grow the food because it needs more space. For us, we think that argument is not fair because of a few reasons. The idea of needing space for agriculture is not for the majority of crops being grown. This is mainly animal feed and large scale commercial farming. So when we talk about all these other products, I think regenerative and organic works very well. And some aspects of regenerative are really finding its way into even large scale commercial farming. And with the increased research and development and drive and recent interest, we're hoping that, we're going to be able to close that gap of efficiency.
So you're obviously involved in multiple agricultural initiatives. What would you say is your vision for the future of sustainable farming in the UAE?
I think sustainable farming in the UAE probably has to be more developed. So right now, as we increase our production, then you're going to have post-harvest food processing projects that really support the ecosystem. I'm hoping that we are able to influence menus instead of trying to serve acai and avocado because somebody else's industry really pushed for it, that we are pushing towards our dates, our camel milk, our sustainably grown fisheries and oysters and so on. So we are focused on our locally produced foods. And instead of trying to grow what people are consuming, we want people to consume what we're able to grow. So in the future, I'm hoping that we are able to have that influence on menus and in that sense be able to produce food that is more sustainable locally. And most people have to understand we're not aiming to grow 100% of what we consume. In today's age of convenience and globalization, I don't think any country is going to be able to grow its own coffee and chocolate and rubber and cotton and so on. So we're going to focus on diversifying our sources, ensuring that there's a national stockpile, ensuring that what we grow is grown sustainably, and ensuring that what we grow makes it onto plates and supermarket shelves and doesn't get wasted as much as possible.
Have you seen good examples of that shift happening? Is there any examples of products or things that you've seen starting to shift and really get adopted in the UAE in that way?
Yeah, I think there's a few projects that have also a lot of fans, like Bio Farm with the mushrooms. They are not talking about growing mushrooms only. They are trying to grow it on date palm, which is a waste source in the UAE that sometimes underutilized. So the idea of figuring out how to utilize our waste is a major one. We import 80 to 90% of this food, and then we have a big waste problem, 30 to 40%. So then you have people trying to create protein from that waste, like Circa Biotech with the insect protein, with the black soldier fly. You have people that figured out that oysters can be produced here without importing feed, without cooling systems. You do it in the ocean, like the Bay has done. You have camel milk producers that are exporting camel milk at this point, even powdered camel milk chocolates and all these different products. And yesterday I was at an event that had camel milk feta cheese. So it's great to see some of these ideas being developed. And I hope and I think I'm going to start seeing local quinoa with the efforts of ICBA. You're going to see definitely a bit more localization of a lot of ingredients that are going in a circular fashion. So not just we grow it here, but how we grow it is coming from coffee waste, is coming from waste, is coming from our own environment.
How do you see the role of organic farming evolving to address some of these challenges as well?
Yeah, I think, organic farming, it gives you a label, and the label is certified and globally recognized at a certain set of standards that everybody agrees to and understand what they are. So in a world of, there's a lot of food fraud, there's a lot of marketing, things are called, labels that have nothing behind them. It's a problem. Organic is a unique one where globally it has a very strong certification. So it plays an important role where you see if you want to do these sustainable methods, right now, I think in regenerative, you do them, but you're not getting the premium to support you. So with organic, it's going to support you. You're going to be able to sell at a price point that supports this transformation. So organic's very important. I think it's important in the UAE and in the region because our resources are precious. I don't want to be competing on large scale commercial agriculture. I want to premiumize local products, especially when an industry is rising and at its beginning. Anything that helps us become more special, niche, is environmentally sustainable, I think is a win. And organic is supporting that. And I see it also supporting smallholder farms even in some areas in Africa and India, where an organization will help a large group of farmers with the certification process. If it's an expensive undertaking, then they do it for a group. And that way, actually, smallholders are getting much better price points. They're able to sell vegetables, they're able to export them, and it's playing an important role in helping the transformation. Yeah.
So one thought would be, there's lots of agricultural entrepreneurs in the region. What advice would you give to some of those aspiring entrepreneurs?
I think there's a lot of knowledge. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not readily available. So speaking to the industry, going to these conferences, trying to meet people that are operating to understand and define the challenges well. Because ultimately you don't want to make an assumption, and then once you enter the market, you figure out the challenges is a bit different. So just going out there, trying to reach out to experts in the industry is important. Second of all, understanding that yes, we all want food security, but it has to be financially sustainable. We are working it's a business, yeah. So ultimately, it's a business. We are not grant-based in our region, for example. If you are in Syria and Lebanon and Jordan, you might be able to be supported by a lot of grants, by global grants. But where we operate, this is considered as a wealthy region, and we're not going to have grant-based supporting our projects. We don't have large population centers or agriculture centers. So here, it has to be a business, and you are working on a longer-term goal. Hopefully the problems that we are solving for today will be the challenges of feeding the world tomorrow. So with climate change, a lot of the problems that we are solving for today with climate change is going to face a lot of different regions in the world. So they might look to this region to see, okay, how did they farm in extreme temperature, in drought conditions, in how did they treat, saline water encroachment and all of these things that are increasing around the world. And if you look at Saudi and the UAE, it's already here, and we're trying to solve them. So I hope and I think that for entrepreneurs, the impact is going to be larger than just food security here.
And if people want to visit Emirates Bio Farm, is that possible? When's it open?
Yeah, we open up in the winter for visitors, usually sometime around November. We've been delayed just this season, but to learn more, it's emiratesbiofarm.com and Instagram-Emirates Bio Farm. And there we post about our opening, and you can buy tickets. We're open 7 days a week, and we welcome school trips and corporates and all kinds of activities. So we'd love to welcome you all to the farm.
So one thing that I always like to close things out is a recurring question that I guess we can all relate to. And it's, we all have to eat. So what's something that you are loving to eat at the moment? What's something that you're really enjoying?
Funny enough, eggplants. So we have a lot of eggplants, and we're figuring out how to make it fun for consumers.
What's your favorite recipe or way of eating
eggplants? The miso eggplant, the Japanese way, is excellent. We're trying to replicate that more in an Arab tahini situation and date molasses, and to try and get that caramelization. So I'm focused on that in terms of the restaurant. But yeah, like I said, the more I'm saying alternative foods used in a fun way, in an interesting way, you're seeing local foods, you're seeing beans, pulses. So more plant-based. I understand a lot of people aren't going to go fully vegan, but people are being way more on the plant-based side.
Well, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul.
You've been listening to Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. Future Fork is produced by Disruptive Consulting Solutions and supports the SDG2 Advocacy Hub. For more info, head to the website futureforkpodcast.com. This show was produced with strategy and production support from Wavelength Creative. So you don't miss an episode of Future Fork, make sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Paul Newnham, and I'll see you in the next episode.